goes along. But do we still have Caroline on the phone, Dave? All right, so I started off the show by sharing my near getting stuck in an elevator story. Thankfully, I didn't this morning. Dave has his history of getting stuck in an elevator, and I presented the question to you, the audience. Ever been stuck in an elevator? If so, what's the story? Caroline on the AAA Heat and Air phone lines has a story for us. Caroline, appreciate the call. How did it go down for you?
Oh, gosh. We were renting a house at Pawleys Island, and the first night there, I got stuck in the elevator for 45 minutes.
Ooh.
And, yeah, we called the realty company, and at first they really weren't that much help. They had to get the caretaker to come over. He couldn't get it fixed. And then they had to get the elevator guy to come over and fix it for us. But then we had to get our family member, who is wheelchair-bound, 6'2", and weighs around 200 pounds, up 3 flights of stairs because the elevator wasn't working.
Oh, my goodness.
So it turned out okay, but we don't rent that house anymore.
I was going to say, did you avoid elevators for a long time after that, if you could?
Just that house, because they ended up kind of blaming us for it, which it was...
That's not good.
No, not at all.
You didn't break it on purpose?
No, we didn't break it at all.
Okay, well, hopefully you don't get stuck on it anymore. Appreciate the story. That's a good one.
Thank you.
All right, 803-404-6100. Again, Firehouse Subtext line. You can let us know, too. Ever been stuck on an elevator? We can share some of those stories as the day does go along. But as I just mentioned, we are watching right now as Super Regionals get underway with West Virginia and Cal Poly. Again, West Virginia just hit a 3-run home run there in the in the bottom of the first there to give them a lead, and that's something else that goes into this whole situation with South Carolina figuring out who its next head coach is going to be. Going back to what David Cloninger reported the other day from the Post and Courier, that there are multiple candidates still being interviewed. That I took that to mean there are guys being interviewed right now, and we believe there will be more candidates that are open to being interviewed depending on how this weekend goes, because Steve Sabins with West Virginia, as of right now, currently playing. Skylar Meade, again, former assistant, coaching Troy, taking on Little Rock this weekend as Troy is hosting that Super Regional. And then the name that's popped up a little bit more as of late, Scott Forbes of North Carolina, who, again, based on what Jack and Whittle and all those guys have been reporting at the various outlets, like there's more serious consideration to his name than we had thought even a couple days ago. And hey, he's got an impressive resume. That is a guy that has been to Omaha multiple times, has only been coaching at North Carolina for 6 years, but has done everything short of winning a national championship. And now it cost a lot because he's making $1.7 million in North Carolina right now. But you hire that guy, that would get the fan base plenty excited if that does end up being the case. But, of course, they're taking on Southern California this weekend in their Super Regional. And depending on how that ends up shaking out, we'll see, if he continues on being a candidate or not. 'Cause certainly, while these guys are still playing baseball right now, they obviously can't, have a sit-down interview with Jeremiah Donati and really hammer things out. It's back channeling, talking to agents and stuff like that until they're free and open to be able to interview, like Kevin Schnall's been this week. And, again, depending on how things go in Supers this weekend, we'll see how that ends up shaking out. We'll continue to talk about that throughout the show. I'll get as well into what Jake McKeever, and we'll play the full interview for you coming up in the 2 o'clock hour that we had with him from College Baseball Central yesterday on his full thoughts on how he thinks these Supers are going to shake out over the course of this weekend. But continuing on with the theme of getting stuck in an elevator, Jeff wants to share his story now on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. Jeff, appreciate the call. How did you get stuck on an elevator?
Well, it was quite the adventure. I was the athletic trainer with the basketball team at Carolina, and we were doing a European trip, and we were actually in Madrid. And if you're familiar with the way European elevators are, they're much smaller than any of the elevators we have here. And we were going down, getting ready to go to a game, and I had my trunk on the elevator, and all of a sudden, 4 or 5 players jumped in. Mike Cradell was with me, and it was just too much weight for the elevator. So we got caught between floors, and we were actually stuck for about an hour trying to get out. And you can imagine no air conditioning there in that small elevator with 3 guys that are 6'9", a trunk, myself, Mike Cradell. It was quite a story.
So how do you pass time in an elevator in those tight confines?
There was a lot of storytelling. There was a lot of "we're going to die" stories that were taking place.
You never want that guy in the elevator with you.
Ryan Stack was stuck with us, and if you remember, Ryan was about 6'11", and the elevator was probably 6'4". And we had several guys that were, 6'5", 6'6", and then Ryan Stack, who literally had to get on his knees at some point just to be able to relax a little bit because the elevator wasn't tall enough.
So as the athletic trainer, did you have to, give him extra care after that to, for the knees or the neck or whatever for having to accommodate to the elevator height?
Oh, it was quite a deal. A lot of those guys, I mean, by the time we got off the elevator, everyone was sweating profusely. I mean, uniforms were dripping wet. I was soaking wet. It was so hot. We were in Madrid, and you have to remember this is probably in August or so. So
sure.
It was brutally hot. But, we did take a little bit of precaution before the game and actually, had them drinking fluids and doing everything they could do to rehydrate. But it was we're all still friends, so that was so it wasn't that bad, I guess.
Well, at least you can laugh about it now, and you have a great story to tell from all those years ago, Jeff. Appreciate the call, man.
Yeah, this is great.
803-404-6100. We'll continue to pepper in some elevator. I didn't realize this was such an experience that so many people had. Again, I've lived my whole life with this fear. And again, I have to ride elevators in any building. So my fear has been heightened in the past, 12 or so years. But knock on wood, it hasn't happened yet. Hopefully it doesn't happen. But if it does, I hope, like Jeff, I can look back on it years later and laugh about the circumstance or who I'm in the elevator with if it does end up happening. But, let us know, Firehouse Subtext line, if you got any good getting stuck in an elevator stories. Who was there? When did it happen? Are you still closely connected with that person, bonded by the traumatic experience of being stuck in an elevator? We'll talk about that as the show goes along. But coming up next, got to talk to our guy Brian Edwards, the Vegas Insider, as we do each and every Friday at 12:30. A lot of things going on in the sports world this weekend, including the NBA Finals. We'll get some lines and numbers on that, as well as looking ahead to the college football season and some early numbers on games with that as well. As the halftime show rolls along, Tyler Head, Captain Dave, along with you on your Friday here on The Game. right, welcome back in. Halftime show. It's all right, Captain Dave along with you here on your Friday on the game, as we do each and every Friday, 12:30. Time to talk to our guy, Brian Edwards of Vegas Insider. We'll get to the numbers in a moment. This ended up being the inadvertent theme of the show, I guess, because I shared at the top of the show my almost getting stuck in an elevator story this morning. We had two people call in to share their getting stuck in an elevator story. So, Brian, first question for you. Ever been stuck in an elevator before?
Fortunately not, and I'm so glad because I have been in some sticky situations where I get a little claustrophobic. I remember when I was a kid at a Florida FSU game one time, we were all jammed up because everybody's exiting the stadium, and I'm shorter than everybody when I was a kid. Man, ever since that, I'll have a little claustrophobic issues at times. So, fortunately, not in the elevator, and I hope it remains that way.
Yeah, for both of us, hopefully so. My life kind of flashed before my eyes this morning with that, and that's the closest I've ever come. And thankfully,
how long were you in there?
It didn't actually get stuck, but the thing started malfunctioning when I was on it. And me and the other dude were like, this ain't good. And he pressed a couple buttons,
right.
and it operated normally after that. But I was mentally preparing myself, like, all right, got to call Terry to get somebody to cover the show. How long am I going to be in here? I was getting ready for it, and thankfully it didn't happen. So that's as close I've ever come, and knock on wood, it never happens. But that, again, is kind of the inadvertent theme of the show, I guess. I wanted to know if you had an experience with it or not.
Fortunately not. Let's hopefully, knock on wood, keep it that way.
Well, somebody that would not be fun to be stuck in an elevator with, probably be Victor Wembanyama, considering how tall he is. Might have to kind of crane his neck in most elevators anyway. As his Spurs team looking to avoid falling 0-2 in the NBA Finals in tonight's game number 2 at home, taking on the Knicks, who again picked up the 10-point win the other night in game number 1. Line moved around a little bit here. You were telling me earlier that Knicks are up to 6.5 now. You like them better, maybe around 5.5, but you're still going to ride with the Spurs for this one?
Yeah, well, I mean, I got a little bit in at 5.5 yesterday, but I'll still recommend it at 6.5, but obviously not as high on it. You know, the zigzag theory is a theory that's always been used in the NBA playoffs, and I guess you can use in other sports as well, and it mainly pertains to Game 2 and just going the opposite result of Game 1. I don't have the exact records of how it's been so far in the NBA playoffs, but I feel like it's been pretty good, and so I'm going to go with that. You know, the Knicks accomplished what they want to, which was, you know, to get a game on the road, take over home court advantage. I mean, hard to go against the Knicks. What is it now, 12 in a row, 11 of those wins are double-digit margins, and so that's difficult, but I could see them getting a little complacent here if things don't go right early. And let's remember, you know, Spurs had a 14-point lead. I think it was 65-51, you know, fairly early in the third. And so, you know, things were going right for them for a good chunk of the game, but then Jalen Brunson obviously took over in the fourth quarter, which he's been prone to do. So I'm kind of playing with fire going against the Knicks here, but I'm gonna do the Spurs minus the 6.5.
Yeah, I know you, like me, are a Falcons fan. Are you a Hawks fan by chance?
Lifelong suffering, brother.
Okay, all right. So there's the theory out there now that the Hawks might be the second best team in the NBA because they're the only team that's actually beaten the Knicks in the playoffs so far. And you know what? I can stand by that theory until proven otherwise.
Yeah, and I mean, like, you know, we got blown out after taking the 2-1 series lead, but I feel a lot better about it, you know, now that the Knicks have been so dominant, you know, starting once we got that 2-1 series lead. I was hoping we'd get a better draft pick, but number 8 is still a pretty good one. So I think the future is looking pretty decent for our Hawks.
Brian Edwards, Vegas Insider, joining us on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. Let's take a look at a specific player prop for tonight's game. Josh Hart had his best rebounding outing of the entire postseason the other night with 15 in game number 1. You can get this at a couple different options. One of them, 8.5 and then 10+ in terms of rebounds for him tonight?
Correct. So over 8.5 has a minus 135 price tag that, you know, I'm not crazy about that, so I wouldn't risk too much because, you could play in an extra 35 cents on every dollar if you lose. But if it wins, it doesn't matter. And he's had at least 9 rebounds or more in 9 of 15 playoff games, and he's averaging 9.2 rebounds per game in the playoffs. But I think I prefer going either 10 plus, which if he gets exactly 10 rebounds, it's a push. So basically, it's 11 or more, but you don't lose on 10. But that's plus 112. And then 11 or more, or 11 plus rebounds, it was plus 163. And 12 or more is plus 240. So, maybe if you're willing to risk 2 units, maybe just go like a half unit on each of those. And hopefully if he gets 12 or more, we'll get some nice profit.
Again, game number 2 tonight in San Antonio as the Spurs try to avoid dropping 0-2 before they go to New York for game number 3 coming up on Monday. We've been slowly getting into some of these future lines for college football as we're still about 3 months away from the season starting. Of course, Carolina opens up the season with Kent State and Towson, so those aren't lines that I think a lot of people will be interested in. But as we get into SEC play, and certainly with Clemson coming up at the end of the year, those games are the ones that obviously take on the most meaning. We do actually have a line already for Clemson and South Carolina and Clemson, with the Tigers right now being 3-point favorites. But there's no telling what either one of those teams are going to look like by the time Thanksgiving weekend rolls around.
Yeah, no doubt. DraftKings, they on Wednesday night, right before the finals, game 1, they released 70 games of the year. Only one for the Gamecocks, like you said, 3-point underdogs at Clemson. I mean, if I had to play it, which I don't have a DraftKings account, but I would lean Gamecocks. But like you said, a lot of question marks for both teams. Certainly the quarterback position being one for Clemson. I want to see how South Carolina's revamped offensive line looks, because if that offensive line is vastly improved and Lenore Sellers doesn't have to run for his life every Saturday like he did last year, then I think South Carolina's got a chance to be a pretty good football team. But I want to see that O-line in action, and we'll get some opportunities in September. Now, I don't know if I feel like DraftKings usually they won't necessarily have all 70 of the games they have now. They'll take them down come week 1, but they usually repost them as the season goes. So I'd rather kind of, take a wait and see approach to both of those teams, really.
A couple of the other games that they released as well. This one has potential maybe being one of the games of the year in college football. Going to be a rematch of the semifinals last year between Georgia and Ole Miss. This one in Oxford. Last time Georgia went to Oxford, they got beat pretty handily by Lane Kiffin's team a couple years ago. But right now, Ole Miss is a 5.5-point underdog, but you like the Rebels really early in this one in what's going to be a pretty high-profile matchup.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand Georgia being favored, but I was thinking like 2.5 or 3. I think 5.5 is rich. Like you said, Ole Miss put it on Georgia 28-10 at Vaught-Hemingway 2 years ago. And then early in the fourth quarter last year in Athens had a 35-26 lead, but Georgia scored 17 unanswered, ended up winning 43-35. But then, of course, Ole Miss got revenge in New Orleans in the big one, 39-34. I'm bullish on Ole Miss in general this year. I mean, with maybe the exception of the game at Texas, every Saturday they're going to have the 2 best players on the field, Trinidad Chambliss and Kejuan Lacey, except for maybe that day in Austin. But, plus 5.5 for the Rebels. Give me some of that.
Last one here, again, looking really far into the future for the last week of the regular season. Florida, 4.5-point favorite at Florida State. Again, talk about 2 programs where you have no idea what they'll look like. Florida State may be on an interim head coach by that point in time if the Norvell era continues the way that it's been. But, again, a rivalry game that's obviously going to draw a lot of eyes no matter how good or bad the teams are, and you like the Gators as the early favorite there.
Yeah, minus 4.5. That one's going to be on Black Friday, along with the Egg Bowl, where Ole Miss is 14.5, and then also Texas is minus 2.5 at A&M. Yeah, I like the Gators there. Like you said, I think Norvell, unless it's just you save a little, unless you save hundreds of thousands with each game he coaches, I would think he'll be out of there at that point. So I like Florida minus 4.5 there. In fact, I'm not really against going against FSU in all these games, and I'm not a big believer in Clemson this year, but Clemson's only minus 1.5 at FSU, so I wouldn't mind the Tigers there. How we doing on time, Tyler? You want me to share some more of these games of the year lines?
Yeah, got about another 60 seconds. So, yeah, throw as many out there as you can.
Yeah, so in the revenge game for Alabama against FSU at home, Bama's 15.5 in week 3. Florida's first trip to Auburn since the Will Muschamp era, also week 3. Florida at Auburn is a pick'em. The next week, LSU -3 to A&M, Georgia -10 at home to Oklahoma, Texas -6.5 at Tennessee. And let's see, we've got Alabama, third Saturday in October, -1.5 at Tennessee. Georgia -16.5 at home to Auburn. And tell me if we're low on time here. I kind of like Alabama -2.5 at home to A&M on October 24th.
Okay.
Gators are +12.5 to Georgia in Atlanta.
Okay. A lot of good stuff, man. And certainly we still got 3 more months to continue to preview and talk about it. But enjoy the weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Tyler. Have a good one, man.
Brian Edwards there, Vegas Insider, joining us as he does each and every Friday. We'll wrap up hour number 1. Cale Wilson checking in from the Beamer 7 on 7. Tell us what's going on out there coming up next as the halftime show rolls along here on The Game. All right, welcome back in. Halftime show. Tyler, Captain Dave wrapping up hour number 1 on your Friday here on The Game. As we get into the month of June, a lot of things going on from a football standpoint as we get closer to the season starting, but also planning for the future of Gamecock football. That includes the Beamer 7-on-7 camps with multiple ones going on through the month of June. And I got Cale Wilson on the scene right now for day number 1 out there. You can hear it in the background. Cale, set the scene for us. What's going on out there at 7-on-7?
Hey guys, it's such a scene. I mean, there's I didn't count the exact amount of teams here, but there's at least 20 teams here. And right now, the game I am paying strong attention to is Providence Day from Charlotte, North Carolina, a perennial powerhouse in the North, Upper State, versus a powerhouse in the Palmetto State, the Dorman Cavaliers. Now, this is a 7-on-7 matchup, Tyler, and there's 11 players in this game that have D1 offers that are playing in this.
Okay, a lot of high-level talent out there. Now, I have to ask, you're a big guy. You got good size. Anybody tried to recruit you yet? Like, hey, that Cale Wilson, that'd be a good tight end. I feel like you'd stick out at a thing like that.
I did have a Dorman player come up to me and ask if I played D1 football, and I told him no, and he didn't believe me.
That's a good compliment, though.
Yeah, it definitely is a great compliment. It definitely is a great compliment. But I was going to be honest. I had to be honest, and but I still don't know if he believes me or not. So hopefully he doesn't go tell a bunch of people that I played D1 football.
So for those not familiar, tell us how this kind of structure of this works. Again, you mentioned teams from all over the place, from in the state, from North Carolina. Well, how is this going to unfold throughout the day, and what people should be paying attention to coming away from this?
So really, one of the things that happens here is every school that comes here plays 5 games. They play 5 games, and the teams that they play are randomly selected. Now, after that, the teams with the best record afterwards get put into a tournament. So basically the criteria to make the tournament, to I guess kind of say a 7-on-7 playoff, if you will, is to have a winning record. So if you go 3-2 or better, you're playing in the tournament after the regular game, kind of like a playoff game after a regular season. And basically you just keep winning, and if you win the whole thing and you keep winning till the end, you're the Shane Beamer 7-on-7 champion. So go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead. Finish your thought.
But yes, both of these teams that I'm watching right now, Providence Day and Dorman, have submitted. I've already clinched the tournament after the 5 starter games because they're both 3-0 facing each other right now.
And I asked West about this earlier because, again, football's played 11-on-11. So you're basically doing this without a full offensive line. There is a center that snaps the ball, but there's no pass rush. But all the skill positions are on display for 7-on-7, correct?
Correct. And the quarterback has 4 seconds to throw. There is someone at every single game, and as soon as the snap is taken, there's a timer. And if he does not throw it in 4 seconds, it's registered as a sack.
So you were sending me some of the names a little bit earlier on of all the people that are going to be out there at that camp. Who have you got your eye on? What have you seen so far in terms of future possible prospects out there at camp?
So the big name right here is for 2028 wide receiver Braylon Clark. He plays for Providence Day. I was told he is the second-ranked wide receiver in the entire country in the class of 2028. A couple of his offers that he has are South Carolina, Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, Oregon, Texas, and Indiana. He has had 1 touchdown against Dorman, but surprisingly, every other target he has been a pass breakup forced by the Dorman secondary. Another one that really has caught my eye is another Providence State wide receiver. He is committed to Wake Forest. His name is Steele Fletcher. He is a 2027 wide receiver. And he's not playing, but he's an offensive lineman. He's at a lineman camp here because while the 7-on-7s go on, there's a lineman camp that goes on. And his name is Jordan Lewis. He is a 2029 recruit, but he already has an offer from Georgia and NC State. And the Dorman coaches were telling me they're very confident he's going to be walking away from Columbia today with an offer from the Gamecocks.
Of course, with South Carolina hosting this, a lot of Carolina coaches out there observing everything going on. What have you observed of the interactions coaches have had with players or teams?
I've seen one of the coaches, and I've seen one of the coaches talk to this one recruit. His name is Jay Shell. He plays for Rabun Gap McCucci School. I think you may have heard of that. I'm sure from Georgia.
Yep.
But they are here, and Jay Shell is entering his junior season, and he has an offer from South Carolina. I saw South Carolina coaches talking to his family the entire day. And I really think that that's one of the biggest interactions that I've seen. As, his family hasn't really been left alone by the coaching staff today, which I think is a pretty good sign.
Okay, and how much longer is this going on today?
So we are in the fourth of the first 5 games right now. After this, there's one more game, and then the playoff tournament starts. So I would say it will probably be over by 3:30 or 4, but it started at 10:45 this morning.
Is it warm enough for you out there, by the way?
Well, considering the fact that there's games played in Williams-Brice and this Dorman-Providence Day game is in Williams-Brice, I would say I'm very warm.
And this is just the beginning here. So you got one on the 8th, the 12th, the 18th, and the 19th. So the first of 5 different 7-on-7 camps as the summer goes along.
Yes. So we will be covering these, every single one of the Shane Beamer 7-on-7s. They'll be clips posted on our social media and a bunch of stuff like that. We're having hands-on coverage as football season approaches, as we wait for a baseball coach to be hired as well.
Well, Kale, good stuff. Keep up the good work, man. Get back to it, and again, we'll be checking in with you periodically throughout the month as you're out there covering this for us.
Yes, thank you guys so much.
Kale Wilson out there at the Beamer 7-on-7. Again, the first of 5 going on through the month of June. Hour number 2 on the way. Who's the doormat of the SEC? A question was posed yesterday on the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, and I'm seeking out to try and find the answer. We'll talk about that coming up in hour number 2 as the halftime show rolls along. Tyler Head and Captain Dave on your Friday on the Game. All right, welcome back in. Hour number 2, halftime show. It's Captain Dave rolling with you here on your Friday on The Game. We'll get to the SEC doormat conversation in a moment, but update from Morgantown, West Virginia. They're in the top of the 4th right now. West Virginia, after that 3-run homer in the bottom of the 9th, still leading the Cal Poly Mustangs by a score of 3-1. Again, Super Regionals work like any traditional series, though if you win the first 2 games, you don't have to play a third. So if West Virginia wins this one and wins tomorrow, they are on to Omaha for the College World Series. That series is starting the weekend. Little Rock and Troy later on today, Ole Miss and Auburn, and then North Carolina and Southern California later on today at 3 o'clock. The 4 series getting started today. The other 4 series will start tomorrow. Quick aside here, Dave, because I heard Jay and Terry having this conversation yesterday on the post-game show. I'm assuming it came up because of the Super Regional this weekend. But the other USC is playing against North Carolina. So two programs that draw the ire of South Carolina fans because of the name thing, right? Like the debate on Carolina between North and South Carolina continues on because both programs and their fan bases refer to themselves as Carolina, as is the deal with USC. Right now, as somebody that grew up outside of the state of South Carolina, USC was always, in my lifetime, what we referred to as the team in California, the Trojans. And South Carolina was South Carolina. I understand the debate here and the claim for being the real USC and all that kind of stuff. And I have a really weird thing about this. I don't like saying Southern Cal. Like just the shortened Southern Cal. I say it sometimes just in the act of the normal conversation, but I would rather say Southern California or SoCal. You ever say words that in your head just don't sound right? For some reason, saying Southern Cal doesn't sit right with me, and I don't like saying it. Is that weird?
No, it's not weird at all, but you should call them SoCal because they hate that.
Oh, they do? I did not know that.
Yeah, so
okay.
SoCal it is.
Okay, SoCal. Or, again, I'm cool with saying Southern California. I don't know why. I don't know. A psychologist could probably explain it better to me. I don't know why shortening California to Cal bothers me. I don't have a problem like for Cal Berkeley when referring to them as Cal, but for some reason referring to the University of Southern California as Southern Cal bothers me, and I don't know why.
Well, we have Northern Cal and, as well. That's where all the water comes from up there.
Sure.
Redwood. So, yes, the Southern Cal just doesn't really fit.
I don't know. And again, I say it because, again, everybody here says it. They refer to the Trojans as Southern Cal. So I've gotten into the act of saying it. But for some reason, when I say it, it almost kind of makes my skin crawl. I don't know why that is. Again, if I'm conscious of it, I'll say SoCal or Southern California. But for some reason, Southern Cal bothers me, man. I don't know why.
Yeah, well, let it bother you and go with SoCal because, like I said, they can't stand it.
I guess I'll start doing that now for sure. But either way, SoCal is taking on North Carolina in the regional Super Regional starting today at 3 o'clock. Again, there is smoke that Scott Forbes, the head coach of North Carolina, more of a candidate than maybe we originally thought for the South Carolina job. And certainly if the Tar Heels get bounced this weekend, that opens it up for him being available in the next week to interview and potentially be even more of a candidate. And same thing with Steve Sabins in West Virginia, as again, they have the 3-1 lead over Cal Poly right now in that Super Regional game number 1. Okay, so I asked the question, or I told you going in to the end of the hour that we were going to discuss the doormat of the SEC. And this came up yesterday in conversation on the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs, of course, every day from 11 to 12 here on 107.5 The Game, where we were talking about, funny enough, Nate Bargatze's Breadwinner movie. And Nate Bargatze is a huge Vanderbilt fan. Has been on game day and all that kind of stuff. And he featured Jared Curtis, the 5-star quarterback that has not played a single snap of college football that we anticipate to be the starter at Vanderbilt this year in his movie. And, okay, you're setting the bar really high, and we'll see if this guy ends up panning out being good. But it spurred the conversation of Vanderbilt not being the easy win on your schedule anymore, right? Because for my entire lifetime, certainly since the South Carolina joined the SEC back in the early 90s, I'm sure all of you did this too. When you looked at your schedule every single year, and we're going to do this over the course of the summer as we get closer to the season and all that, you always try and count which games you think you know you're going to win, right? Now, again, you'll look at a Kent State, you'll look at a Towson and say, yeah, those are wins, no problem. In years past when you've had Furman's, Wofford's, even Coastal last year, you say, okay, Carolina should have no problem winning those games, and they have. Now, some games tighter than others, like Old Dominion a couple years ago, but most of the time you count those as wins. It's trickier when you get into the SEC, right? And you really assess where every program sits currently in terms of, okay, that game will be hard, that game will be easy, this could be a challenge, that's definitely not a win, that's definitely a loss, or whatever it may be. But Vanderbilt was always that one consistent team in the SEC that everybody, all, depending on what year you're talking about, all other 11 members, all other 13 members, or now in this case, all other 15 members of the conference said, Vanderbilt, that's a win. Yeah, no reason to think Vanderbilt's going to beat us. Because losing to Vanderbilt was like the most shameful thing you could do in the SEC for the longest time. Like even during those good years with James Franklin, losing to Vanderbilt has never been acceptable until now, right? The past 2 years with the upset of Alabama in 2024, the 10-win season last year, like Vanderbilt has really, and this is credit to Clark Lee and Diego Pavia and all the people, Tim Beck, all the people that have changed the narrative around Vanderbilt, where when you look at schedules this year in the SEC, and Vanderbilt's not on South Carolina's schedule this year, so you can't exactly do that for South Carolina. But if they were, if Vanderbilt was on South Carolina's schedule, no, I don't think a lot of people would be looking at it and say, okay, that's guaranteed win. Now, that being said, considering the fact that Vanderbilt lost a lot of talent, including Pavia, Eli Stowers, guys like that, they could go back to being 2-10 Vanderbilt, right? They could go back to what they were for so long at the beginning of the Clark Lee era as well, of being that doormat of the SEC. But for the time being, with what they've done the past 2 years, I think everybody has removed them from that basement of the conference, saying, okay, all right, maybe, just maybe, they're not that anymore. Can go back to that, but for the time being, nobody's looking at that as an easy layup guaranteed win. So the question becomes of, okay, well, if it's not Vanderbilt, then who is the doormat of the SEC? Who is that team that right now everybody in the conference should look at and say, yeah, okay, that's an easy win. No way we should be losing that game, regardless of if it's at home or on the road. Now, if you've said South Carolina is one of those teams, I can understand where you're coming from. Certainly in the last couple of years, it's been up and down. I will say, I think South Carolina having a 9-win season 2 years ago and playing as many tight games as they did last year, I think that kind of disqualifies them from being seen as a doormat, because you have seen a proof of concept there as of late, right? Like you've seen that they can be competitive and pull off some pretty big wins in the SEC too. So I wouldn't necessarily qualify South Carolina as a doormat. There's a couple candidates here, and I did this because I look at South Carolina's schedule this upcoming season. Now the back half of the schedule is a dog, save for one team, which, hey, might be the candidate here. But there's kind of like 3 teams that I look at on South Carolina's schedule that I think all of us kind of look at and say, yeah, that's a good chance that that's probably going to be a win, hopefully. And those 3 teams are Mississippi State, Kentucky, and Arkansas. Now, 2 of those 3, in Kentucky and Arkansas, have now hired new head coaches. They're starting new eras and hoping to turn that ship around. Mississippi State, they showed a lot of promise last year. I will say that. Lebby's second year, they looked a lot better. Only won 1 conference game, but they showed a lot of fight, gave a lot of teams tight games, including Tennessee, who I believe they took to overtime in a loss there last year. So they're a team that went down swinging, and a lot of their games they did end up losing. So that alone might be enough to disqualify them from being the doormat of the SEC, though, again, it's been a couple of brutal years. That Zach Arnett season after Mike Leach passed away really set that program back, and I think they're still trying to recover from that. So I'll move them off to the side. Kentucky and Arkansas, right? 2 programs that, and look, Carolina's not had mountains of success in the Beamer era, but I think you look at those two respective programs saying, okay, well, at least we're kind of doing better than them, right? In fact, going back the last 5 years in the SEC, like Kentucky's 14-26. They've obviously fired Mark Stoops, brought in Will Stein, and on the other side, Arkansas, equally as bad in conference play. They moved on from Sam Pittman, maybe held on to him a year too long, right? They got Ryan Silverfield. We'll see how that works out, but I don't know. And look, both those coaches could be Kurt Signetti 2.0, and a year from now, Kentucky and Arkansas are in the college football playoff, playing for and winning national championships. College football is crazy enough that you just never know at this point in time. But until proven otherwise, I think those are the teams that you look at and say, yeah, those are kind of easy wins as of right now. Again, not a guarantee. Carolina's thankfully had a little winning streak going on against Kentucky. They did lose the last time they played Arkansas back in 2022. But if I had to really narrow it down, I'd say it's probably Kentucky. I think Kentucky, until proven otherwise, has kind of taken on the role of being the SEC's doormat, because as I, again, looked at South Carolina's schedule outside of the two non-conference games to start the year, that is the one that I gravitated towards the easiest to be able to say, yeah, Carolina, they'll be able to, they can win that game, right? This is a program that in the last couple years with Mark Stoops was never 500 in conference play, right? Last year was bad, 2-6, including a loss to South Carolina. I just think that they've kind of established themselves at the bottom of the conference until proven otherwise, right? And they didn't finish last in the conference last year. In fact, they actually did finish with more conference wins than South Carolina. But I just think the optics, and especially considering the fact that, like, they're a school that's primarily basketball focused. Now, again, Will Stein seems like maybe they've shifted more resources and focus to football. It's never going to pass basketball, but we'll see. But until proven otherwise, I feel fairly confident saying that I think Kentucky is now the doormat of the SEC. That being said, if Vanderbilt goes 2-10 this year and, Jared Curtis flames out or transfers somewhere else after 1 year and they just go back to being old Vanderbilt will reassume that throne of being the doormat of the SEC. But for the time being, or trying to find an interim placeholder, if not a permanent, going forward, my vote's for Kentucky. I think Kentucky is at the bottom. Now, Chris weighs in on the Firehouse Subs text line. Says Arkansas, South Carolina, Mississippi State, and Auburn were all in the cellar last year. They were. That was the bottom four in the SEC. Now, again, two of those schools, Auburn and Arkansas, did hire new head coaches. Golish, we'll see what he does out there at Auburn after the disaster that was Hugh Freeze. But I think the optics of, like, Auburn at least having more recent success, I think prevents people from looking at them as a doormat. It's like, I don't know. They got good resources. Maybe Golish will turn it around. I think Kentucky, for just not being a football school, basketball first type of school, I think that plays into a lot of the optics of what the doormat of the SEC is. And we'll obviously see if that continues as the season goes along. That's a big storyline for college football this year that we'll talk about more as the next couple months go by. Half of the SEC is brand new, man. New coaches in new places. All the guys that were on the hot seat last year fired. Beamer's on the hottest seat going into this year because the conference is so brand new. And, again, everybody wants to be the next Indiana. And we'll see if Golish or Summerall or Silverfield or Stein or whoever can be the next Signetti and turn their programs around and take them to places they haven't been before. We'll see. Probably not going to happen, but it's going to be fun to follow regardless. And for the time being, my vote for doormat in the SEC going to go to Kentucky. We'll switch to high school sports coming up next as we're wrapping up the 2025-2026 high school sports season. Our guy Chris Deering going to give us all the latest and recap what stood out to him this past year as the halftime show rolls along on your Friday on the Game. All right, welcome back in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Hay, Captain Dave, along with you here on your Friday on the game. Wrapping up the weekend as we do each and every Friday at 1:15. Time to talk high school sports with our guy Chris Deering. As unfortunately, Chris, we are wrapping up. Getting to talk about results. We'll have plenty of things to talk about, previewing football and all those other things coming up over the next couple months. But finally putting a bow on some championships here the other day. And now I guess you and everybody else can maybe relax a little bit for the summer if that's possible.
Well, football goes all year round around these parts, Tyler. So still got a lot of football stuff that we're working on. I know a couple people are out over at the USC 7-on-7 today. I've been texting with somebody that's over there. And, yeah, we put a bow on the academic year last week with the baseball and softball championships wrapping up. And we talked about it last Friday, but, AC Flora ended the season in baseball with another state championship. They're 8th under Andy Hallett. Andy Hallett's last game with the Falcons, and he couldn't have written a better script in how he went out. I think he said after they won the state championship, that was the longest winning streak he'd ever had as the coach at AC Flora. I think it was 17 games. And they just, powered through the playoffs. Just a ton of talent on that team, from Charlie Scott to Roper Winsky to the Hernandez brothers. They were just really talented, and it was fun to watch that team. I saw several of the games in the playoffs with them, and and Andy Howard does things the right way. You talk to any coach in the state, and they always talk about how they admire what Andy has done at AC Flora, and sad to see him go, but I know he's going to do a great job over at Midland STEM as the athletics director and baseball coach. So looking forward to what he can do with that program. But, selfish reasons, because I live right around the corner from AC Flora, it'd be a little bit different going over there and not seeing Andy Howard in the dugout.
And again, you mentioned 8th title for him in almost 30 years as a coach. If we're going to talk all times in the state, where's he ranking for you?
He's right up there near the top. I mean, I think we have 2 in this area. I think you throw Brian Hooks into that conversation. You throw Andy Hallett. There's some other guys across the state. But those 2 have done it, and they've done it consistently. They've done it over a number of years. And it's just been fun to watch. They do it the right way. They're in it up for the kids. I know both of those guys coach summer baseball with these travel programs. And they just, like I said, they do it the right way. And, again, selfish reasons. Andy's my neighbor. He lives about 5 or 6 houses down from me. I'm right around the corner from AC Flora High School. I did ask him if he was going to move since he's got to go out to Winsboro now for Midland STEM. And he did tell me he was going to be in the location for at least a couple more years before he decides what he wants to do. But, again, you got to put Allen right near the top. Like I said, 8 state championships in 29 years, and they've always been a contender. And it's going to be interesting to see. One thing that I've talked about to a couple people, not only in athletics but business-wise in the Forest Acres area. He runs the Forest Acres Classic, and that's been one of the marquee spring break baseball tournaments in the state. And I think there's a little bit of uncertainty with what's going to happen with the Classic going forward. But AC Flora's already named the coach, Ryan Poole, the guy from Blythewood. He was in North Carolina for a long time, and now he's taken over at AC Flora. So hopefully they can keep that spring break tournament going, because it's always one of the best in the state.
Chris Deering joining us here on the AAA Heating and Air phone line. Sticking with the Diamond Sports, Great Collegiate wraps up a perfect season with a title win the other day there. Aspen Boulware gets her final at bat, being a home run of her high school career before she comes to South Carolina. And for the Great Collegiate's accomplished a lot, but have never had a perfect softball season until now.
Yeah, I mean, that says a lot about that program and where they are. They do have Aspen Boulware. She was named the Gatorade Player of the Year earlier this week as well. They steamrolled everybody. They didn't really play any close games, and they played multiple teams across multiple classifications, and things weren't close. And you got to give them credit. So it's not just Aspen Boulware. It's a team of really good players that gelled together, that came together. They're nationally ranked in the Max Preps poll. I don't know where they were exactly. They're inside the top 20. But that says a lot about the program and what Doug Fry has done over there. He's been doing it a long time as well at Great Legion and some other stops previously. But I didn't get a chance to see Gray in the playoffs because I did stick sort of closer to home with AC Floor. But talked to several people that did see him, and just a really dominant program and a dominant season for the War Eagles. And, good to see him cap it off with a state championship. I tell people all the time, Bill knows he won one at Lexington. You always going to remember this, no matter what you do the rest of your athletic career, no matter what you do, post high school. I think you always will remember a state championship.
So now that we've crowned all the champions in the state, we can kind of reflect back on this entire year as a whole. That again started back in August with football scrimmages and all that. What kind of stands out to you in terms of the entire high school calendar year of the highlights?
I think you have to start with what Tom Knotts has done at Dutch Fork. I was thinking about that program earlier this week. Matter of fact, I'm writing their preseason MVP right now today as we are talking about it. And, my choices were almost endless for that team. They had so many, top-notch guys, and I had to really figure out who it was going to be. But, 4 straight state championships, 10 in his tenure at Dutch Fork. That's just incredible what he's built with that program. And he's doing it, he's doing it with transfers, and he's doing it with homegrown talent. And that's what high school athletics is. That's where we're at right now. And he's done it. And just to consistently win is just impressive. And, I do like the fact that moving into the 26-27 school year, there's only going to be one Class 5A. They were split the last few years with, being Division I, Division II. Now that's going to move down to Class A. They can have a Division I, Division II. But with 5A being, one state championship, you got Dutch Fork, you got Northwestern, teams that have done it historically. And that's going to make 5A really competitive next year. Whoever comes out of that is going to be battle tested, and they can definitely call themselves one of the best teams in the state, if not the best. I mean, you still got the Dormans in there, Somerville. 5A is going to be loaded next year. I can't wait to vote in the poll preseason. It's going to be tough to sort out the top 10 in that classification. So that stands out to me, what Dutch Fork built and what Tom Knotts has coming back and what he's added through the transfer situation. And the other thing that's really stood out to me, and we talked about this back in March, late February, early March, is what Richland District 2 did in basketball with Ridgeview and Westwood boys winning state championships and the Blythewood girls winning back-to-back state championships. That just tells you that I always say it every year that we do these segments, that I think basketball is really, they're the strongest in the Midlands, and I think the results sort of showed that. You had C.A. Johnson also winning a state championship, so C.A. Johnson boys. So that it just tells you that basketball is really good in this area, and I think if you win a state championship, you probably have to beat a really talented team from the Columbia area just to get there.
Last one here, about 60 seconds. Quick administrative note that the High School League has named Amy Boozer as the interim commissioner with Jerome Singleton's upcoming retirement. We can dive more into that next week, but your just quick thoughts on that.
Just quick thoughts. I've known Amy since she came to the High School League about 10 years ago. She's done a really good job. This will end Jerome Singleton, I think, 19-year run as the commissioner of the South Carolina High School League. It's a different look than what we've known in the past. It's going to be a different look going forward, and it could be a national search. I think Amy has a chance to throw her name into the hat for the commissioner role, but we'll see where it ends up. I know that she was a 14-0 unanimous vote to take the position on the interim basis. So it'll be interesting to see what they do moving forward and how they reshape the high school league as we know it and as we've known it for, decades at this point, to see what we can do moving forward. Again, put the athletes first that's my key thing, is keep the athletes first and everything else is secondary.
Chris, man, appreciate it as always. Enjoy the weekend.
All right, thank you, Tyler. You have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
Chris Deering there, joining us as each and every Friday, talk about what's going on in the high school landscape. We'll come back, continue on with Halftime Show on your Friday on the Game. All right, here for our friends over at Canty Foundation Specialists. Tell you about them all the time, but I'll happily remind you again, you always got to be on the lookout. Things around your home that are a little bit off, that look kind of weird or just not quite right. Things like cracks in your exterior brick, cracks in and above windows and door frames, doors or windows that might be sticking, uneven or bouncy floors, or cracks over your garage door. If you notice any of these problems with your home, you could have serious foundation issues. And that's where our friends over at Canty Foundation Specialist come in. Go online to schedule your appointment today at cantycanfixit.com, and they'll send a professional out to your home to evaluate those foundation issues and get them fixed right so you and your family can live worry-free going forward. Again, go online. Do not hesitate to cantycanfixit.com. Let our friends over at Canty Foundation Specialist help you out with your home's foundation needs. All right, welcome back in. Halftime show. Saturday, Captain Dave along with you here on your Friday on the game. Keeping an eye on what's going on in the Morgantown Super Regional. Again, that's of interest to South Carolina because we believe Steve Sabins is still a candidate for the vacant head coaching job. And right now, his Mountaineers up 8-1, top of the fifth over the Cal Poly Mustangs. Cal Poly does have a runner on third, but 2 outs. And barring an offensive explosion, West Virginia in a really good spot right now to potentially pick up game number 1 if they win tomorrow as well. That would obviously punch their ticket to Omaha, which would be huge. And if Sabins is the candidate to be hired, that would further kick the can down the road in terms of the ability for South Carolina to interview him and make him a true candidate. So keep you updated on that as the show goes along. North Carolina and SoCal will get started at 3 o'clock for their Super Regional later on today. Last night, Stanley Cup Finals, game number 2. Won't lie to you. It was trending towards being a boring, maybe game you turn off a little bit early, and then all hell broke loose in the final 10 minutes of period number 3, lasted into overtime where this happened.
Oh, the critics wondering where they've been if they score the game winner in overtime. Goss to spare. They score! Seth Jarvis! Quiets the critics!
Seth Jarvis scores the overtime goal to elevate the Hurricanes 4-3 over the Golden Knights in game number 2 of the Stanley Cup Finals. A very critical one at that, as, you know, if you're in any 7-game series and you drop your first 2 at home, your percentage and odds of winning the entire thing drop significantly as they'll head to Las Vegas for game number 3 coming up tomorrow night. And the last thing the Hurricanes wanted, of course, was to be down 0-2 and then heading to the other venue as that series went along. Again, they're down 2-0. That was the first time they've been shut out in the first 2 periods at home since, I believe, November of last year. And they, again, are still trailing with no goals through halfway through the third period, and then the frenzy comes. And not only do they tie the game, they take the lead. Now, the Knights end up getting that final score with a couple minutes to go to send the game into overtime and maybe take the momentum back, but then the Hurricanes are obviously able to snatch it back with that score in overtime, I believe on a power play as well. And power plays have not gone well for the Hurricanes in the postseason so far. So they bucked that trend last night and, again, snatched back some momentum from the Golden Knights ahead of game number 3 coming up tomorrow out there in Las Vegas to see who can take the advantage in the series as it rolls along through its middle portion of games. Game number 2 coming up tonight in the NBA Finals. This game also in San Antonio like the other night, where, let's face it, the Spurs need to win, much like the Hurricanes last night. If you are faced with a situation where you're down 0-2 and going to the other venue for game number 3, I think you're cooked, man. Now, look, asking for a sweep, even for as good as the Knicks have been, is a lot, right? So even if the Knicks did have a 2-game advantage, I wouldn't doubt that the Spurs could get a game. But asking to come back from an 0-2 deficit, very, very hard, especially with how good the Knicks are playing as of right now. We talked a little bit earlier with Brian Edwards. Of course, you know, Jalen Brunson. Karl Anthony Towns had a great game the other night. Josh Hart, a rebounding machine in game number 1, his most rebounds so far in the postseason. All those guys, they're firing on all cylinders. Going to be tough to deal with coming up tonight. And, you know, Kat specifically was winning the matchup with Victor Wembanyama. I imagine there'll be the assignment again tonight. And if he can hold Wemby in check like they did the other day, that's a good pathway for the Knicks to get a victory. I will say, I think it's worth noting that, because, again, the Spurs had, a 14-point lead at one point, and then they end up, giving up the 11-0 run in the final 4 to 5 minutes of the game the other night. I think they got tired. I think the grind of a 7-game series against Oklahoma City really wore on the man, and you had a Knicks team that hadn't played in over a week that was good and fresh and ready to go, and I think that proved once they got into the deep waters of the fourth quarter to be part of the difference. And we'll see how much more rested and ready the Spurs are coming up tonight for game number 2 before the series shifts to New York for game number 3. By the way, get in price if you want to go see that game. Actually, real quick, get in price for tonight's game. A lot more manageable. You can get in for as low as $616, which to many still sounds like a lot, but it pales in comparison to the $8,900 it would take for you to get in the door to MSG for Monday night's game number 3. Obviously, the world's most famous arena, going to be packed to the gills with celebrities, I'm sure. And yeah, if you're a common person, you're going to be spending multiple months' salary just trying to get in the door to watch that game. So, yeah, that's coming up on Monday, and we'll see what the series is by that point in time. I can tell you, though, one person that's not going to be in attendance, or at least two people not going to be in attendance for that game, is the crazy fan that ran on the court in game number 1. Dave, this can be cut number 7. Victor Wembanyama was asked about that interaction after the game the other night.
Victor, kind of a strange situation there at the end with the fan running up to you. Have you been in that situation before during a game? What was going through your head, and did you smile for the picture?
I've never been in that situation. I didn't know how to act. It really surprised me almost as much as that time where a bat crashed the court.
Thank you, Victor.
So, and I don't believe we have the names released on this, but the guy that ran on the court who did run specifically at Wemby and attempt to take a selfie. Now, the videos come out from this guy's phone of him running on the court. Again, I don't know if we know his name or not, but he does run up to Wemby and attempt to take a selfie. Wemby's so tall, though, he couldn't get his head in the frame. Like, you can see the one Spurs jersey, but you can't see all of Victor Wembanyama because of how, freakishly tall he is. But that earned that guy, and apparently his buddy that was helping him orchestrate the whole thing, a lifetime ban from all NBA arenas that the league announced yesterday. So I hope it was worth it. I did see some theories out there online that maybe this guy and his buddy were trying to cash in on one of those predictive market type of things like Kalshi or whatever, where you can bet on anything apparently, and like, hey, is a fan going to storm the court in the NBA Finals? If you place a yes bet on that and you do it yourself, I guess you win, right? Now, there may be some provisions around that prevent that from happening, but regardless, it was a rare sight to see, especially like running on the court in an NBA game. It doesn't happen a lot anyway, but a random Tuesday night game in January is one thing. Doing it in the finals is another, especially considering the fact there's beefed up security and all that kind of stuff. And, yeah, you've now earned yourself a lifetime ban. So hopefully it was worth it. I did have a texter on the text line earlier ask, how do they enforce that, right? How do you truly ensure that guy and his friend never go to another NBA game again? I imagine they send out some kind of notice to all the arenas with pictures and names and all that kind of stuff. But, like, if somebody else bought him a ticket and the dude wears a hat or, like, shaves his, facial hair a certain way to where he's not as recognizable, he could still probably go, right? I don't think he can purchase tickets himself. And if he goes looking the same as he did the other night, they'll probably kick him out. But I'm sure there's a way around that. I don't know. Not something I really ever thought about. But for the time being, at least, that guy and his buddy not allowed at any NBA games in the future. So I don't think they'll be I know for a fact they won't be there at MSG come Monday for game number 3 of the series. As we talk about all the things going on the court and on the field, of course, there's still plenty of news headlines revolving around litigation and figuring out the fixes for college football. Nick Saban testified before Congress the other day. What did he have to say about the Protect College Sports Act? We'll talk about that coming up next to wrap up hour number 2. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head and Captain Dave on your Friday on the Game. All right, welcome back in. Halftime show. Tyler, Head Captain Dave, with you on your Friday here on The Game. Getting set for a busy weekend of sports. Just talked about the Stanley Cup Finals and NBA Finals as they continue on. Got super regional action going on all weekend long. I'll update you on that a little bit more coming up the top of the next hour. And, you know, I think we all try and focus as much as we can here on things that are happening on the field, court, diamond, whatever it may be. But unfortunately, when you follow majority college sports, as we do here on this radio station, we do have to talk about the legality type of stuff, the things that are happening in courtrooms, things that are happening before Congress as well. And that's what's going on right now with the Protect College Sports Act, a bipartisan bill that's being pushed forward to try and solve a lot of the problems going on with college sports. And the other day, they were testifying before Congress. Nick Saban was even there offering his support of the bill. And this is what Coach Saban had to say before the leaders in Washington.
Right now in college football, we have no rules. We have state laws. We have different in every state. We have litigation. The NCAA cannot enforce their own rules because every time they try to enforce the rule, there's a lawsuit. So, I mean, an example would be Ole Miss's quarterback. They say he can't play next year. He's playing next year because of litigation. So, but this is just the way it is. It's become an arm race. Who spends the most has got the best chance to win. But I think it's a race to the bottom because if you don't spend to win, you lose your fan base and you don't have any revenue.
And, you know, this has been talked about a lot this week from national outlets and things like that. Saban's not wrong in what he says. And I think he's echoing a lot of the sentiments that a lot of you out there listening are probably saying, like, yeah, it is ridiculous that, you know, the NCAA can rule something and then immediately that school or that player can get a preliminary injunction that overrides the rules. That's what's happening with Brendan Sorsby, or attempting to happen. Sorsby was ruled ineligible by the NCAA because of his gambling situation, and Texas Tech is just trying to get an injunction long enough to allow him to play this upcoming year because they're investing $5 million in him as their quarterback. You know, we had this revenue sharing thing come in last year, and every school worth their weight is going around it with spending more, double, triple sometimes the amount of money that the revenue sharing cap was supposed to impose. There's no structure to it, right? And I debated even talking about this because there have been so many bills that have come up in these past couple of years in this new era with NIL that don't get very far because they at some point end up violating antitrust acts and get squashed. But this one's so high profile, it's worth talking about to some degree, though I don't think it's going to get very far. And one reason I know that is because the SEC and the Big Ten, in a joint statement, those two sides aren't agreeing on a whole lot right now. But the other day, they both came out and said they are opposing this bipartisan bill, which, by the way, credit to those that made this bill for getting both sides of the political spectrum to agree on anything. I'm the least political person you'll probably meet in your life, and this is the extent I'm going to talk about politics on the show. But getting both sides to agree on anything is impressive, so points for that. But I don't think it ends up going very far. And again, when you don't have the two biggest leagues in college sports in on it, that certainly doesn't help the case. And look, you can read until your eyes go cross-eyed about the details of this, what exactly it's advocating for, what it's trying to fix and all that kind of thing. But one of the biggest points of contention and the biggest reason why the SEC, or one of the biggest reasons why the SEC and the Big Ten aren't in on it, is it's trying to pull media rights, right? So for those that are unfamiliar, every conference has its own media rights deal. The SEC has one exclusively with ESPN. The Big Ten has one with Fox and CBS, multiple entities. You know, ESPN has deals with the ACC and the Big 12 and all that kind of stuff, but each conference has a different one where they're all getting paid something different for what their media rights are, as opposed to like the NFL, where it's one unified league that has a TV deal that's split evenly amongst the teams in the league. And that's what this Protect College Sports Act is trying to push in one of its main points, is trying to consolidate those media rights deals for everybody. Well, that sounds great to the ACC and the Big 12 because they're behind the SEC and the Big 10 right now. So, yeah, it would behoove them greatly if all the major conferences were in on the same TV deal. But if the SEC and the Big 10 are looking at this like, why would we do that? Why would we put ourselves in a maybe worse financial position to benefit these other schools? Because we're making money hand over fist right now, They're trying to catch up. Why would we take away our own advantage? And again, that's one of the biggest points of contention for why the SEC and the Big Ten are coming out against this, right? Again, there's a lot of layers to this. I'm not going to sit here and bore you with all the details. You can read up on it in your own time if you choose to. But, this thing's talking about things like preventing coaches from leaving in season, putting a cap on revenue sharing, on revenue to a degree, allowing the NCAA to circumvent some antitrust rules for enforceability. And I read all these things, and I'm like, I just don't think that's going to hold up in court, right? Because eventually this, as it passes through, would eventually have to go to the Supreme Court, right? The Supreme Court that ruled unanimously 9-0 against the NCAA that led to NIL because they were breaking the law for over 100 years. In concept, I understand what they're trying to do. And look, we all want college sports to get back to the more simplified version of itself from 5, 10, 15 years ago. I doubt it's ever going to get there, but I understand the push for trying to get there. It doesn't seem like this bill is going to be the one to get it done. As many good points as you heard Saban make there, because he's not wrong. I just don't think this is going to be what that solution is. And quite frankly, I've lost faith in the ability for any kind of government intervention to fix this. What's the solution? I don't know. But there have been so many things proposed, Congress and the House and all that kind of stuff, and none of them have done or even passed far enough to do anything. And I don't expect this one to happen either. It's just kind of where we're at. I feel like we kind of keep running in circles with this over and over and over again. So there you go. Protect College Sports Act. We'll see. But when you don't have the backing of the SEC and the Big Ten, I don't think you're going to get very far. 2 hours in the book, one more hour to go on your Friday. Get back into the head coaching conversation. Also update you on what's going on with Super Regionals as well as the halftime show rolls along on your Friday here on The Game. All right, welcome back in. Halftime show. Direct Captain Dave, final hour for you here on your Friday on the game. I'll let you hear the conversation we had with Jake McKeever of College Baseball Central yesterday, coming up at 2:15, as he gave his thoughts on the South Carolina head baseball coaching search, as well as the Super Regionals, which I'll give you an update on Morgantown coming up in just a minute. But Dave has informed me that there's a piece of Braves history that occurred today that I need to know about, Dave. What have you got for me?
Well, we do have video and audio from it. So the Chicago Cubs hosted the Atlanta Braves on this date 41 years ago.
Okay.
And here is the clip from that.
All right.
I think I broke my thumb. Hey, bada, 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 so wing, bada. Hey, bada, 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 so wing, bada. Kennedy, 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 so wing, bada. Hey, Cameron, you realize if we played by the rules right now, we'd be in gym?
Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Ah, okay. All right. I had forgotten that was a Braves game.
Yes, it was. Of course, it's on TV. Mr. Rooney's in a bar, and it's on the TV up there, but he doesn't see it.
Okay. So that wasn't the game that they were at.
That was the game they were at.
That was okay. All right. Okay, that was the game that they were at. Okay, I'd forgotten about that. Huh, this day 41 years ago, huh?
Wow, yeah, hard to believe it's been that long.
How about that? Is Ferris Bueller's Day Off, is that like a top 10 movie of all time, in your opinion?
Yeah, it's definitely up there. It's a great one. I love it.
I always, not to go down the rabbit hole of movie conversation completely here, but I will always contend that movies made in the 80s are some of the best movies of all time. And here's why I say that. Because back in the 1980s, that was before like the CGI and all that kind of stuff. And the same argument can be made in the 90s as well. But as we got into the 2000s, we focused so much on like CGI, animations, special effects, and a lot of music too, that I feel like that took away from really good storytelling, to where you look at a lot of the movies in the 80s, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Breakfast Club, movies like that. I feel like they really had to tell a good story to pull you in. And Ferris Bueller's Day Off is a great example of that. I always contend the best movies were made in the 1980s.
Yeah, and the music was great in the 80s, too. I mean, it was fun time.
Well, and I feel like when you watch those movies, because now I feel like you can't see a movie without, with extended periods of time without some kind of background music. You know what I mean? Where back then, there was just a lot of straight dialogue, right? Where it was just two characters talking. There wasn't music in the background telling you what the scene was supposed to feel like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like they really focused on good conversations, depth of character, all that kind of stuff. Look, Jack is the movie buff of the group here at 107.5 The Game, but that's always been a belief of mine that the 1980s was the peak of movies because of those exact reasons.
Yeah, and the two songs I remember from Ferris Bueller, of course, Twist and Shout, and
Yes.
the other one that goes, oh, yeah.
Yep. I can't hear Twist and Shout without thinking of that scene. Like that Ferris Bueller is Twist and Shout to me, in my opinion.
It was great. I mean, there was some controversy because they added horns to it, but, you know.
Yeah. But that's an all-time iconic movie scene. Man, between getting stuck on elevators, which was the start of the show, and my thoughts on movies of the 1980s, we're just all over the place today, Dave. That's all right. It's Friday. It's June 5th. You know, it is what it is.
Hard-hitting sports journalism going on here.
That's right. It's what we do around here, Dave. You know, if we had a head coaching hire from South Carolina, maybe that'd be a little bit more of the focus of today. But as it stands right now, hasn't happened, as we're on Schnall Watch Day 5 for, of course, Kevin Schnall, the Coastal Carolina head baseball coach, who has been done with his season for 5 days now. They got eliminated by Florida State on Sunday at the Tallahassee Regional. Now, we can confirm that he did meet with Jeremiah Donati in the school yesterday. So they've had conversations. They've had their formal meeting, or at least first formal meeting that we know of, and the ball's rolling on that. So Schnall is still as much of a candidate as ever, but we know from David Cloninger reporting from the Post and Courier, there are still, quote, multiple candidates that are in the mix here. Well, how many that is, who those are, we don't necessarily know. Now, it is worth noting, as I give you the update right now on what's going on in Super Regionals. There are several candidates that are playing this weekend. One of them, Steve Sabins in West Virginia right now, who are holding a 8-1 lead still in the bottom of the 6th inning. So looking pretty good for them right there as that half inning comes to an end. So only 3 more innings to go, and West Virginia cooking pretty well right now in game number 1 of the Super. So he's a candidate. Fitzgerald might still be. His name's fallen off a lot more as these past couple weeks have gone by. Skylar Meade, of course, former assistant here, coaching Troy against Little Rock this weekend for their chance to go to Omaha. And then a newer name that's popped up recently in Scott Forbes from North Carolina. There seems to be more smoke on his candidacy here at South Carolina. And for one, he'd be a great hire. That guy in 6 years has accomplished a lot. Multiple trips to the World Series. He's done everything but win the darn title, which, hey, maybe they do this year. I don't know. But he would be a great hire if that ends up being the case. But what this tells me more than anything else is that Donati is not afraid to be patient, right? And I've seen the sentiment on social media in the last 24 hours because, again, and I understand why everybody, including some of us, may jump to the conclusion of, okay, Coastal season's over. If you're going to hire Schnall, it should be done in a couple days. But it hasn't happened yet. And this, I guess, is that Gamecock PTSD where people start assuming the worst of like, oh, no, I've seen this before. You know, it's Sean Miller in the basketball program all over again, and it's going to fall apart, and, you know, Denai's going to have to fire, you know, some assistant coach from a D4 school or something along those lines. I'm not panicking, but I understand why fans feel that way because you've seen those kind of things happen when it comes to coaching searches here at South Carolina. Some of those happen with Ray Tanner as the athletic director. That's just a statement of fact, right? We have to condition ourselves, and we are still learning along the way, too, of what a Donati coaching search looks like. And I will say, as we're getting to the end of this week, without having a coach hired, unless it's happened in the past 90 seconds since I've looked at Twitter or Gamecock Central, may not happen this weekend, may not happen next week as well. Donati is making sure he gets the best possible option, in my opinion. Schnall's a great option. And if Kevin Schnall got hired right this second, I don't think there'd be many people in this fan base that got upset. But there are other big fish out there, too, that maybe Donati doesn't want to leave off the board, right? Now, yeah, you're having to wait longer to interview Sabins, to interview possibly Scott Forbes. But if you think that's the best option for the program going forward, why not wait, right? Now, yes, it is worth noting. And as we've talked about earlier on today, another handful of players have now gone in the transfer portal. You know, Aaron Jamison, Jack Reynolds, Jake McCoy earlier on this morning, Reese Moore last night. So you're about 20 or so, 21 players, I think, that have gone in the portal as of right now because they don't have a coach. And the portal swings both ways, obviously, where you have guys going out and you can have guys coming in. And the longer you wait to make your hire, the more you are hurting yourself in terms of getting talent out. Because guess what? Nobody's going to commit to a school that doesn't have a head coach, right? And if, let's say, you're not making a hire until after the College World Series is done in a couple weeks, well, you're got a chance to miss out on some maybe high-level talent that's going to end up signing elsewhere, right? That being said, if you think, let's just throw out there Scott Forbes, right? Because that's a name that's gained a lot more steam lately. If you think Scott Forbes is the best guy for your job, and you know that he would be willing to come here, but you got to wait until he's done playing, which could be not until the end of next weekend in Omaha. If you think that's the best option for your job, then it seems like Donati's willing to wait on that. Now, yeah, in the short term, you are sacrificing maybe some of the roster construction for next year, but if that sets you up the best for the next 10, 15, 20 years, then so be it, right? You'll take maybe a bumpy first year for sustained success after that. Because that was kind of the thing with the Maneri hire 2 summers ago, that it was never a long-term play. Now, it was going to be the last hire that Ray Tanner made, and we all pretty much knew that for the baseball program. But even from the beginning, I mean, Maneri said as much in his opening presser, because I think his original deal was 5 years with South Carolina, where it's like, hey, you know, I'd love to be here for 5 years, get this program back on track, and then go hand it over to Monty Lee. Which, at the time, sure, sounds great. Obviously, didn't end up working out. He did actually hand it over to Monty Lee, though. He was not wrong on that. The way it happened, though, was not exactly what any of us hoped for or predicted, but technically he did hand the reins over to Monty Lee after he and South Carolina decided to part ways with each other, to say the least. That being said, we knew the Maneri hire when it happened was never something that was going to be 10, 15, 20 years. It was a quick thing to get things back on track, and then he hands it off to somebody else, whether it be Monty Lee or some other hire, to keep the train rolling. Didn't happen, and unfortunately, we've taken a lot of steps back since then. But for Donati, who I'm sure plans to be here for a very long time, he doesn't want to have to hire another baseball coach in 5 years. He doesn't have to hire another baseball coach in 10 years. His hope, as it always should be with a hire, is you're hiring a guy that's going to be here for 20 or 25 years and then retires, and then we're talking about building him a statue or where to house all of his College World Series trophies at. Like, that's the mindset you got to have with these kind of things. And I don't know Jeremiah Donati. We're not even in his head for what he's thinking on this hire. We're going off what's being reported, what we know, what's being told to Gamecock Central, the Big Spur, Post-Courier State, whatever. But we don't really know what Jeremiah Donati's thinking. But as the way I've seen this unfold, and again, that doesn't mean that Kevin Schnall can't end up being the guy, but Donati, as good of a candidate as he may be, is willing to maybe wait a little bit longer to make sure he vets this out all the way, to make sure that he can get an interview with Steve Sabins, he can get an interview with Scott Forbes, whoever it may be, whoever he thinks the top candidates on this list are. It seems like he's okay with waiting, making sure he does this right, where again, maybe 2027 is a little bit rocky because you didn't get ample opportunity to dive into the portal the way you wanted to. Because, again, if we're waiting another week on this, a lot of top talent could be going elsewhere. But if you guarantee the fan base that, hey, this is the guy for long-term success, I think people can live with that, right? And, again, we can only speculate because we don't know. But that's the way that I read how this is going with Jeremiah Donati, is that he is not afraid to take a little bit longer, not just knee-jerk and say, okay, hey, Schnall's there, let's go get him and let's get this over and done with. He's letting this play out. And again, Schnall could be the hire for all we know. But it feels like he wants to make absolute 1,000% sure, and if he's got to wait for other candidates to open up, then so be it. Now, again, that attitude could change that fact could change if they end up announcing Schnall in like an hour or something like that. But the way I read it right now is he's willing to give some time to these other candidates for their seasons to end, where he can have those sit-downs with them to make sure he makes the right hire for the future of South Carolina baseball. And again, we're anxiously waiting to see who that is. But as much as I understand the concern from the fan base, I still feel pretty good. I have confidence he's going to get this right. Who that candidate is, we'll see. A lot of names out there, including Schnall, that could take this job. But I'm interested and excited to see what Donati ultimately does and the reaction to it. And, gosh, how many people are in Founders Park for game number one? Because I feel like this hire is going to be one, hopefully, that excites everybody to where, it's standing room only for Carolina and whatever mid-major they're going to play Valentine's weekend, right? We'll see. Still waiting. Yesterday on the Garnet Trust Hour, presented by Krantz Cooling, Heating, and Plumbing, we talked with Jake McKeever from College Baseball Central, got his thoughts on the Carolina job search as well as the Super Regionals that, again, are going on right now with West Virginia still holding the 8-1 lead in the top of the seventh. We'll replay that conversation for you coming up next. Dimitri Ravenos also joining me at 2:30 to talk some college football 27 as well as the halftime show rolls along. Tyler Head and Captain Dave on your Friday on the Game. Welcome back in. It is the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling, Heating, and Plumbing. Tyler Head, Jack Feltree, Wes Mitchell along with you here on your Thursday on the game, talking a lot of baseball. And we'll do that now with our guy, Jake McKeever from College Baseball Central, joining us on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. Jake, appreciate your time, man. How are we doing today?
Jack, thanks for having me. It's really, really exciting. We're on the precipice of the Super Regionals. It's coaching season. It's portal season. You know, it's a great time to be following college baseball.
Well, we'll get into those supers coming up in a moment. Of course, our focus here lately has been South Carolina and where they're going to go with their next head coaching hire. Obviously, a lot of smoke towards Kevin Schnall, but nothing's been done officially as of yet. Your thoughts from an outsider's perspective on what's gone down here, not only with his coaching search, but the Mainieri era, how that fell apart, and where Carolina baseball is currently?
Well, first things first, I know that there were a few rumors out there that Kevin Schnall had been signed. As of right this moment, that is completely untrue. I would say if you're a South Carolina fan or even the administration, that you have to feel really good about landing Kevin Schnall. I'd probably put it at like a 70 or 80% of landing him, but nothing is official yet. Two things to point out is, you know, Kevin Schnall went to Coastal Carolina and he's been there for 21 years. So it's probably going to take a really enticing offer to get him to leave Coastal Carolina. And I think that that's what kind of the big holdup is. I know Steve Saban's name has also been mentioned with the coaching search. If I'm him, after, you know, the scene that we just witnessed with the regionals, how much they've kind of dominated recruiting the last 2 years, I think that that's a really, really tough spot for him to leave in. Because, I mean, they really do seem bought into him. It's fantastic facilities. But, I mean, South Carolina is one of the premier jobs in the SEC. Like, there's probably only a half a dozen teams. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of USC's coaching search last year with Grand Canyon, where you get all the pedigree and winning that's associated with South Carolina baseball without all the expectations and all of the hate, if you will. Like, I think the fan base and the administration understands that Mainieri kind of ran this program into the ground, and it's going to take a few years for it to build back up into the superpower that it was under Ray Tanner. So you get all the elite recruiting and money that comes with a top-tier SEC job without the expectations of immediate success. So I think that that's, from some of the coaches that I've talked to, is it's a very, very enticing job. So I'm really excited to kind of see where they go with it because, you know, James Ramsey got a big, big extension because of South Carolina, and I think that just shows how serious South Carolina is in getting back to those Ray Tanner days.
Hey, Jake, it's Jack. Thanks for joining us, man. Kind of going along the lines of Schnall here, I'll just ask pretty simply, I mean, just from what you've seen, what sticks out most about him, and why is he so enticing for this South Carolina job, in your opinion?
First things first, I mean, he's a proven winner. I mean, to go to Omaha in your first season is really just outrageous. Like, we saw what Josh Elander did at Tennessee his first season, Michael Early in 2025. I mean, it's really, really challenging to be a head coach. And furthermore, they did a really good job kind of stifling teams that wanted to get players. Like Dean Mijos, Cam Fluke was a first-rounder that probably would have got mid or low six figures if he enters the portal. And that shows you the program that Kevin Schnall has kind of built at Coastal Carolina, that people like Cam Fluke aren't willing to chase millions of dollars, if they come back and trust the system that he's built at Coastal Carolina. And then furthermore, I mean, the Sun Belt's a really competitive conference. In the past few years, Coastal has dominated it. So it's kind of enticing that Coastal's not really considered a mid-major anymore. It's in the region of the Carolinas, so Schnall has probably a ton of personal connections there with these high school coaches and then just all the money that comes behind it. I think that that's really what's enticing about Kevin Schnall is it's, you know, a proven formula of winning.
Let's talk a little bit about the tournament this past regional weekend, maybe one of the most entertaining that I can remember in recent memory. But what about you, man? What stood out this weekend? Where would you put this one in terms of just high drama entertainment level since you've been following the game?
I mean, this one has to probably rank at the top near regionals. I mean, you mentioned all of the drama that kind of instilled. We had 4 teams go 2-0, get bounced from their regionals. And for reference, ESPN ran a graphic Friday when I was watching the Kentucky game that said 92% of all teams that win the first 2 games of their regionals advance, and it's 75%. All the upsets. I mean, Oklahoma was a team that was really kind of sliding down the stretch in SEC play. I mean, I remember at the beginning of May, we were talking about, hey, you know, if a few things break Oklahoma's way, they can probably be a host. They end up falling, being a 3 seed in a really, really tough Georgia Tech regional. And Dayton Taki also had the big home run, but Dayton Taki hasn't been an everyday guy for Oklahoma. Like, I remember in the LSU series, he was coming off the bench. He was the ultimate teammate. And it was really great to kind of see somebody that's battled, you know, JUCO bandit, get the big hit. And then on the West Coast, I was out at the UCLA regional, and UCLA has been the wire-to-wire number one. And there's a legitimate argument that they probably should have gone 0-2. I know that it took back-to-back home runs and then a walk-off with a 5-man infield to beat Virginia Tech. And then St. Mary's, you know, with a really, really aggressive plate approach and some great pitching, knocks UCLA off twice. I mean, that's the only team that's beat UCLA in back-to-back games. And they're out of the West Coast Conference, and we're picked 4th in that one. It's just been a fantastic, fantastic Super Regionals. And, you know, I didn't even get into the Little Rock-Troy matchup that we have coming up, and it almost feels like an afterthought with all the craziness that we've had.
Jake McKeever from College Baseball Central joining us. Now, Jake, where are you going to be at this? Are you going to be at one of these Supers this weekend?
I'm going to be at the Texas-Oregon Super Regional, and I'm really, really excited because, you know, Texas has these bevy of arms that they can roll out. I mean, Dylan Volantis was the SEC Freshman of the Year last year, probably had a legitimate argument to be the SEC Pitcher of the Year, and he faces an Oregon lineup that has 5 guys that rank over 6'2", so absolutely big boppers. They have a bad taste in their mouths when they came down to Texas in 2024, and it's a lot of those same guys. Like Maddox Maloney was a freshman that year. He's coming back. So, you know, that Oregon team in 2024 ran out of gas with the pitching, and they had some injuries. It's going to be an absolute dogfight between Texas and Oregon this weekend.
The last couple minutes here with the top 2 seeds of UCLA and Georgia Tech getting bounced this past weekend. You know, your threes and so on are still alive with Georgia, Auburn, North Carolina, and Texas. And kind of what order going forward do you kind of look at in terms of favorites to win the whole thing now?
I would say Texas is probably the favorite because if Mississippi State beats Georgia, which again, it's very, very hard to beat a talented team 5 times, and that's what Georgia's going to have to do against Mississippi State after they swept them at home. Texas has a series win over Mississippi State. They have a series win over Alabama. They have a series win Oklahoma, should Oklahoma kind of push through that bracket. So that's 3 of the 4 teams that they have winning records against. And then outside of that, Auburn, if they can dispatch Ole Miss, which again is easier said than done. These are 2 former SEC West rivals that actually didn't even get to play this year, so it's kind of fitting that they're playing in the Super Regionals. It really kind of does set up for that side of the bracket because you're going to get either Pauley, West Virginia, Troy, Little Rock in that 1-0 game, should they get past North Carolina, USC. So those would be kind of my 2 favorites right now would be Auburn, should they push through, and then Texas.
Hey, Jake, let's dive into this Chapel Hill Regional real quick. How do you see that one going? And what has Forbes done there just to be so consistent with making the tournament every single year and just consistently having such good, solid teams?
I would say first and foremost, it's the culture that's built at North Carolina that really kind of stands out to me. I mean, you have a guy like Carter French that's putting off a medical career to go and be a walk-on at college baseball. I think that's one of the best stories. But for me, I think the big key to this series is going to be which offense kind of shows up. Because as we saw with USC, like, they have a chance to shut down really, really talented lineups. I mean, they really took it to an A&M team that was probably the class of the SEC. Michael Early mentioned that a lot of these pitchers kind of pitch downhill and pitch off of their secondary pitches. So it's going to be really, really tough for North Carolina. But the flip side of that is, you know, DeCaro's going to keep him in the game with the pitching staff. So I'm really, really excited just because I'm not really sure how many runs are going to be scored that series, but you can tell that every single like moment of that game is going to be magnified. Like the errors are going to mean more. The bunts, you know, the 2-strike hitting I think is going to mean more just because of how much of a premium runs are going to be in that series.
Jake, good stuff, man. We appreciate it, and here's hoping that the Supers this weekend are as exciting as regionals were.
Thanks for having me. You know, we'll be back in Omaha next week, so hopefully we see some Carolina teams out there.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. Jake McKeever there of College Baseball Central. And again, Super Regionals get rolling tomorrow all around the country. We'll continue on with the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling, Heating, and Plumbing. 93 days until kickoff. We'll talk about the number 93 coming up next on your Thursday here on The Game. All right. Welcome back in Halftime Show. Tyler Head, Captain Dave with you on your Friday here on The Game. Welcome in on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. Our guy, Dimitri Ravenos, hadn't talked to him in a while. We'll get into college football 27 in a moment. But, Dimitri, first I have to know, can you confirm or deny reports of you running down the streets of Raleigh shirtless last night celebrating the Canes' overtime win in the Stanley Cup Finals, you being our Raleigh resident?
Yeah, I can firmly deny because after the second period, I looked at my son and said, well, they don't got it tonight. I'm going to bed.
Was it a ESPN alert while you were sleeping, or did you have to wake up and see it this morning?
No, I wake up and see it this morning. I was so groggy that I thought, well, surely they just put the words in the wrong places. And it was a Golden Knights victory. And nope, to my pleasant surprise, the Hurricanes are back in this thing.
Yeah, I won't lie to you. I almost gave up too when it was still 2-0, about halfway through the third period. I'm like, all right, this is probably over. And look, I don't have a rooting interest here. I'm just trying to be entertained. And I was not being entertained up to that point. But boy, the 10 minutes after that in overtime were plenty of fun.
Yeah, man, I mean, like I said, I threw my hands up after the second period because it wasn't just that the Golden Knights had added another goal. The Canes just kind of looked lifeless in that period. They couldn't get as many shots off in that period as they did in the first. And so I just thought, well, I see how this is going. I'm going to bed.
Well, if you're not going to be shirtless in the streets of Raleigh for a Canes victory in the Stanley Cup Finals, perhaps you'll do that when you win a national championship in college football 27. As we know, it's going to be released here coming up in the month of July. The details coming out this week. We got the covers and all that kind of stuff. By the way, quickly, your thoughts on the Dude, Where's My Car deluxe edition cover featuring Kurt Signetti?
My son showed it to me yesterday, and his question was, how much do you think they paid Signetti to make that pose in that on that cover?
Well, see, my thing is, like, he's become so aware of it now. It's a thing.
Right.
Like, when he first started doing it, and he's always done it, but at Indiana, when it started becoming a meme, I'm sure he wasn't aware, but, like, now he's doing it on purpose. So, yes, it doesn't surprise me, like, hey, do the face, and we're going to put you on the cover of the game.
Right, yeah. The whole, ever since the whole Google Me incident, it has become, Signetti is very much aware of people looking at Signetti. Man, I hadn't even thought about how, like, one for one it is to the Dude, Where's My Car cover, movie poster until you said that.
That or American Pie. Both of those are strong contenders for the likeness of how that sets up.
Sure, the 90s teen comedies were a good time for standing and leaning and looking confused.
Exactly. Well, regardless, the game's coming out with a lot more bells and whistles this time around. A lot of changes. Of course, it's only the third installment since they've returned, but this one seems to be perhaps the most loaded since they came back 2 years ago.
It's interesting. I mean, between the new features like getting real, like honest to God, having to navigate around NIL, but also the return of things like mascot mode, I wonder what it says to us about how successful this has been in terms of retaining people buying 1 year to the next. Because I'm not sure, right? Like,
right.
I don't think, even though my son thinks that the idea of the mascot mode is goofy and fun, I'm not sure that's for anybody but dudes like me in their 40s that used to get high and play mascot mode when we were in college.
Right.
But at the same time, like, I haven't really been pining for mascot mode. So, I mean, it's a very interesting to think about what the bells and whistles they have added. It raises a lot of questions about the success of this thing so far.
I tried digging back and finding it, but I know a lot of the athletes now are a part of something, and I can't remember the name of it, that I know I read a while back was going to make it a little bit harder to get everybody's likeness into the game. So, and we haven't gotten official rosters yet, so there may be some players missing compared to the last two games, which had pretty much everybody you would want from every single team. So that could be a reason they're trying to deflect a little bit here, because I've not seen anything roster-wise outside of the guys that have been announced on the covers and stuff of who is actually going to be in this game this time.
Yeah, I mean, I've said all along that I think that the appeal of that series was always playing with the team that matters to you the most. I think that the actual players have been a nice bonus, but I think you could still put out a really good version of college football, you know, whatever it is, 27, 28, whatever, without actual players in it. I think, is it the College Football Collective, I think is the name of that group
I believe, I think that's what it was.
Yeah, I mean, look, we have seen, like, there was no Bill Belichick in the last game. There has not been any Deion Sanders in either of the previous games. There has been no Arch Manning in any of the games. So we have seen some very well-known people left out. And I think aside from the first week you realize they are not in the game, I don't think I've heard much chatter about it. So I think EA Sports is going to be just fine in that regard.
Yeah, and I just speak on this from my perspective of playing mainly in Dynasty mode, that my objective is to try and build a team through recruiting in the game. So what's nice to have those players. Like, I'm trying to get 3, 4, 5 years in where all those guys are out, and I'm trying to have a good team that I've built completely by myself. Like, that's my enjoyment of the game. So if it didn't have real players, I'd still be fine with it.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think, of course, Carolina fans like playing with Lenora Sellers, right? Like,
Sure.
don't get me wrong. It definitely has its appeal. I do think that it's interesting when you talk about people like my age for sure, maybe your age to a lesser extent because you're a lot younger than me. I do think there are people that thought they were going to jump back into this just like they were playing it when they were, in college. And we realized not only are the game mechanics different and tougher, but we don't have the time we have to dedicate ourselves to it. So I wonder if there is some level of necessity for people that are not getting as deep into dynasty mode as they used to be able to.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I'm one of those people too that, when I was playing the original game back in middle school and high school, I had all the time in the world, especially in the summertime, to spend an entire day doing it. Now I'm like, all right, I got like an hour on Friday I can probably get a game out of because I play full-length games. But, yeah, I think you have a good point there that, you got to find other ways to entice people because the first game was pretty bare bones, which is understandable considering it's your first game coming back. And now we're seeing more and more features being added every single year to give you a different experience if you're not going to spend 4 hours a day playing it, which includes in that dynasty mode stuff. We can't actually, I guess, spend money, even though it's not money, it's points apparently on roster, on upgrades, on staff, and those kind of things. So it's getting more realistic. I'll give them that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that is one of the things that, when the game first came back, like, NIL was already very much a thing, and the portal was already very much a thing, and it felt like it was lacking. It got a little bit better last time, but I think they have addressed NIL or are addressing NIL with the next game. And, for 28, you've got to give us a real divide between recruiting and the portal, and then it will finally feel like a more authentic experience, I think.
And again, Dimitri Ravenos joining me here on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. A couple more minutes to go along here. As far as, and again, there's a lot of new features. You can go out there and read all about them. Anything else about this game that stand out to you from what you've read or seen so far?
I mean, I think it is significant that Joel Klatt is taking over as the top analyst on the game from Kirk Herbstreit. I mean, Herbstreit's history with that game goes back multiple decades at this point. And I think that there are a lot of people that discovered the national landscape of college football through playing this game back when, not only Herbstreit, but also Lee Corso was involved in this game. This is a momentum change. I mean, to me, as somebody that grew up with the original game, this feels every bit as significant for Fox's college football coverage as getting the Big Ten contract. Like, this is a real, marker of you are a legitimate presence, a legitimate force in the college football world.
I also saw you can apparently do the 6-7 celebration now when you score a touchdown. You can be spamming that button.
I feel like we have moved off of that. We moved off of that pretty quickly as a society, which thank God, right?
Yeah.
But my family and I were in New York over our kids' spring break, and there was a child that was doing the 6-7 thing on the ferry to the Statue of Liberty, and other children his age were looking at him like, what a dork, and I felt very good that we have moved off of that.
Yeah, everything phases out at some point, so it makes total sense they put it in the game when nobody's doing it anymore.
Right. I guess next you'll be able to say what's up for a celebration.
Oh, I'm sure you can. Dimitri, appreciate your time, man. Take care. We'll talk to you down the line.
All right, talk to you later, Tyler.
All right, one more segment to go. We'll wrap up the day and the week here on the Halftime Show. I'll give you an update on what's going on in Morgantown in the Super Regionals as well as the Halftime Show rolls along. Tyler Head and Captain Dave on your Friday on the Game. All right. Welcome back in. It is the halftime show. It's Outerhead, Captain Dave, along with you, wrapping up the day, the week. As, at the start of this week, I said for South Carolina, if they hadn't hired a coach by the end of the week, that'd be a bad sign in reference to Kevin Schnall, maybe of Coastal Carolina getting the job. But as the week's gone along, and again, as I heard more about how this process is going, I don't necessarily think that's the case. I still think Schnall can be the head coach here. Maybe hired next week, maybe hired the week after that. I don't know. But as I stated earlier on in the show, I just think Donati is really vetting this out as much as possible, making sure it's the absolute right hire. And again, not saying that can't be Kevin Schnall, but there are other seemingly potentially interesting candidates that are still playing baseball right now that we know that Donati, having back channel conversations with, but not being able to do anything formally as of yet until they stop. One of those is Steve Sabins of West Virginia, who his Mountaineers right now leading 11-2, bottom of the 8th inning. I got a pretty good feeling about West Virginia's ability to win this game. And in fact, as I say this, they just added a couple more. Oh, actually, no, that didn't go out. I thought it did. Believe they plated one more run there. No, guy stopped at third. Never mind. So I got 2 on with 2 outs, both guys in scoring position. Regardless, they're going to be toting at least a 9-run lead into the top of the 9th inning, 3 more outs, and they'll get game number 1 against Cal Poly. And, of course, they win game number 2 tomorrow. That advances them on to Omaha. So that's one candidate that you could be waiting even longer for to potentially hire for the job here at South Carolina. Because, again, as I stated, I think Donati is making sure he gets this right. And, yeah, theoretically, could you have hired Kevin Schnall this week if you really, really wanted to and you just didn't want to wait any longer? Sure. But I feel as some of these other candidates are still playing this weekend, and, hey, maybe Scott Forbes is one of them too. As I said, there's been a lot more smoke to Forbes here in these last couple days that, hey, maybe he's a serious candidate for this too. And if so, I'm on board with that. He might be the, in terms of resume and what you've done, Forbes might be the best option if he is somebody that Donati's going to sit down with. And that's another thing, too. Donati's been very tight-lipped on this, right? Now, again, Jack, Veltri, John Whittle, David Cloninger, all these people, J.C. Sherbert, that, get this information and write their stories about intel and all those kind of things. They have trusted sources that give them insight into what's going on, and we can believe what they're reporting is to be true, but it just feels like, and maybe this is because it's Donati's first search, I don't know, it feels like it's more tight-lipped than other things have been. I feel like when the Maneri hire happened, we had a lot more intel on what exactly was happening behind the scenes. Now, that being said, the Maneri hire came out of nowhere. As I've shared before, I was filling in for Bill that week, and I think it was Monday or Tuesday, had done the morning show, came home, had to do it again the next day, so I went to take a nap to get some sleep to make sure I could function the next day, and I went to sleep not, there's still speculation, rumors on who they were interviewing and all that stuff, and I wake up to see the report that, they're going to hire Paul Maneri. Okay, sure. So that came out of left field. Not saying that couldn't happen here, but I just feel like we're a little bit more in the dark, and that's fine if, it goes well. But ultimately, you want to hire that excites people, right? Because unfortunately, this even goes back to the Kingston years where they were at least making the postseason in his last couple years. There just didn't seem to be a lot of excitement about this program. People weren't juiced believing that they could do anything. Yeah, again, they made the postseason in 2024 to the Raleigh Regional, but nobody believed that team could go on a run and make it to Omaha, and they didn't. They ended up getting a bounce that weekend, and Kingston was fired, that next day. So if you make a hire of Kevin Schnall, of Scott Forbes, of Steve Saban, whoever it is, I just hope it's somebody that gives people a reason to be fired up and excited to go out to Founders Park next year for game number 1, for the opening series against whatever the mid-major opponent they're playing is on, I guess, Valentine's weekend, though the Super Bowl's on Valentine's Day. Maybe it'll change next year. I don't know. Regardless of opening weekend, whatever it is, whoever the opponent is, I hope there's a palpable energy about the program that everybody's like, okay, we're back. We're going to be back. We're excited. We're juiced up. We're ready to go. And we'll see. We'll see if that happens or not. But again, I as much as people might be freaking out, and I understand that, given the PTSD of how some prior coaching searches have happened, I do think Denai is going to make the right choice, and I'm excited to see who that is whenever that does end up happening. Dave, I kind of figured our movie conversation from early on in the hour would spurn some text. This text in the middle of June is always funny, but nameless texter said Die Hard is a Christmas movie. That wasn't prompted at all. I just did say that 80s movies, I think that came out in the 80s, early 90s, are the best. But I'll agree with you. I stand by Die Hard being a Christmas movie, as random as that text may be. How about you?
Well, it's got some Christmas in it, right?
It takes place at Christmas, therefore it's a Christmas movie.
Yeah, but not in the traditional sense. I mean,
well, do you watch it any other time of the year?
I'm not sure the last time I watched that movie.
I've only ever watched it in December, Dave. To me, it's a Christmas movie.
Okay. Well, it's not in there with It's a Wonderful Life or A Christmas Story.
No, it's not overly Christmas, but like I would feel weird if I went home and watched it today because it takes place at Christmas.
Yeah. What's his name? What's his name?
Who? Bruce Willis?
Professor Snape.
Oh, Alan Rickman.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now he's great. I watch him on anything.
Yeah, he was awesome. No, him as Hans Gruber was fantastic, but it's a Christmas movie, and I will die on that hill. I'll do it for the halftime show. Post-game show coming up next on your Friday on the Game.
All right, it's 3 o'clock. You made it to a Friday. Welcome aboard the post.